On the night her father died, Celia Vane returned to the family that had exiled her, only to hear his final cryptic words. Not them. Trust. Key. Hidden. Now hunted by those she once called blood, shadowed by strangers who know too much, and torn between betrayal and forbidden love, Celia must unravel a secret buried deep within her father's empire. But every answer brings her closer to a devastating truth, one that could destroy not just her family, but her heart. My name is Celia Vane, and the night everything unraveled began with a phone call I almost didn't answer. The rain was hammering against the window of my apartment, the kind of storm that rattled the bones of the city and made even the bravest cab drivers slow down. I had been staring at the ceiling for hours, restless, my thoughts circling like vultures. When the phone rang, I thought it was just another wrong number, another distraction I didn't need. But something in the way it cut through the silence made me pick it up. The voice on the other end was trembling, male, desperate. Celia, you need to come home. It's your father. He's not going to last the night. For a moment, the words didn't register. My father and I hadn't spoken in 6 years. The last time we saw each other was in a boardroom, not a living room, and our argument had ended with papers torn in half and words sharp enough to draw blood. Yet hearing that he was dying didn't give me satisfaction. It gave me something worse, a hollow in my chest, a sudden rush of unfinished sentences, unsaid apologies and unresolved rage. I booked the midnight train. The journey back to Ashbourne, the town I had sworn never to return to, felt like descending into a past I had locked away. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass, watching the blur of wet trees flash by, and memories I had buried began clawing their way up. The sprawling family estate, the marble halls that smelled of polish and power, the laughter of people who only knew loyalty when it served them. When I arrived at the hospital, the scent of antiseptic hit me first. Then the silence, thick, suffocating, broken only by the hum of machines. My father lay pale and fragile, a man reduced to shadows. And around his bed stood the very people who had exiled me from my own family. My stepmother Clarice with her ice princess smile, my half-brother Damon with that smug tilt of his chin, and beside them, leaning in too close to whisper, my sister Alina. Alina's eyes met mine, and for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw guilt. Then it vanished. Celia, she said, her voice smooth as silk. We didn't think you'd come. I wanted to answer, but my father's hand moved weakly, searching. Against my better judgment, I stepped closer, took his hand, and heard the rasp of his last words. Not them, trust, the key hidden. And then the machine screamed, a flatline that made the room erupt. Doctors rushed in, voices shouted, but all I could hear were those broken fragments. Not them. Trust. Key. Hidden. When I stepped back into the cold night air an hour later, drenched in rain and grief, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. My father hadn't just left this world. He had left me a secret. And in this family, secrets were never safe. The rain hadn't stopped since the night my father died. It seemed to have settled over Ashbourne like a punishment, soaking the ground, turning the sky into a low ceiling of gray. I stood on the balcony of the family estate, staring at the drive where mourners' cars came and went, each one carrying faces painted with sorrow that wasn't real. Inside, the house was alive with whispers. Servants in black carried trays of drinks, relatives hugged each other in choreographed displays of grief, and every chandelier in the mansion was lit as though my father's death were a gala. My stepmother, Clarice, drifted from guest to guest with her glass of champagne, flawless as always. My brother Damon had already positioned himself at the center of the gathering, shaking hands, reminding everyone who he was, the heir. But I knew what none of them did. My father's last words hadn't been about love or regret. They had been about a secret. Something hidden. And I had the sinking certainty that Clarice and Damon were already searching for it. I avoided the crowd and slipped upstairs to the study. It smelled like cigars and leather, the way it had when I was a child sneaking in to catch my father at his desk. The bookshelves towered around me, lined with volumes no one had touched in years. I ran my hand over the wood, remembering the rasp of his voice. Not them. Trust. Key. Hidden. I didn't know what I was looking for, only that it wasn't meant to be found by Clarice or Damon. Behind me the door creaked open. I turned sharply expecting Damon, but it wasn't him. It was Alina. My sister's presence made my stomach tighten. She leaned against the frame, arms crossed, her dark eyes unreadable. Still playing detective, Celiora? I ignored the jab. What do you know? Her smile was too smooth. Only that you've always wanted father's approval, and now that he's gone, you're still chasing his shadows. I wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but instead I forced calm. He left something. Didn't he? That's why you're here, watching me. For the first time, a crack showed in her mask. She looked away, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. Celiora, leave it alone. You don't know what you're walking into. Then tell me. She shook her head. If you keep digging, you'll wish you hadn't. Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking down the hall, leaving me with more questions than answers. I searched the study until my fingers ached from pulling at drawers and shifting books. Nothing. But when I slumped into my father's leather chair, I felt a ridge beneath the cushion. I pried it open and my heart leapt. A small brass key lay hidden inside. It was real. His last words hadn't been madness. He had hidden something, and this key was part of it. The next morning, I left the estate before dawn. I couldn't risk Clarice or Damon knowing what I had found. With the key tucked into my coat pocket, I boarded a train back to the city, every muscle in my body buzzing with tension. But as the train pulled into the first station, I saw him. A man in a black coat, sitting 2 rows down. His eyes fixed on me in the reflection of the glass. He never looked away. And in that instant I knew. I wasn't the only one chasing the secret.